This is the Prestigious Initiative. Welcome. I'm Chris Bean. Here with me is Mr. Jim Marshall. Jim Marshall is the discoverer of hitherto unknown natural phenomenon, which is Septemics. And today we're going to dive into a portion of that in his book. Jim, how are you today?
Happy to see you.
Very good. So today we are going to be starting our group scales. All right.
Okay, so group scales means there are Septemics comprises 35 scales. 24 of them are individual scales, and 11 of them are group scales, meaning they're used to analyze group phenomena. So let's see the first one. Okay, the scale of relationships. Everybody needs this one. This is a spiral scale, meaning there is an apparent congruence between levels 1 and 7. So level 7 obsession can easily be mistaken for level 1 unity. This would be a catastrophic mistake. And anytime you have a spiral scale, there's always this risk, and you have to be careful to avoid this. Now, obsession is a fixation. That's a relationship where the person is fixated, which is definitely a type of mental illness. Unity is duplication. You're not fixated on the person, you are duplicating the person. In other words, you're so close to this person that you have become a unit. So it can look the same if you don't pay attention. This is a gradual scale, meaning there's an infinitude of gradations between each of the levels. And it's a general scale, meaning once you find the level of a relationship on this scale, you're done. Now you can try to move it up one level, but as far as the analysis, you're done. It's not context driven, as are many of the scales. So what are we measuring with this scale? That is the most insightful aspect of this. We're measuring distance and understanding. Now, the word affinity is a synonym of love, and it literally means to the limit. So affinity is a closeness. So when you have zero distance, that's unity. When you have infinite distance, that's obsession. Now, distance and understanding go together. So when there's a lot of understanding, there's a closeness between people. And when there's lack of understanding, there's a distance between people. So, for example, I don't understand terrorists. I think they're crazy. I don't know what's going through their minds. I don't want to be close to them. I want them as far away from me as they can possibly get. Do I understand? No. How can I understand, blowing up a school bus full of children? It doesn't make any sense to me. So you see how distance and understanding go together. So relationships are about understanding and distance. Any type of relationship, not just a romantic relationship. It could be a business relationship, could be a friendship, could be a business associate who you only see occasionally. There's some kind of a relationship there. And the better you understand the person, the closer you can be to the person. And that's always a benefit. There's never a downside to being closer. The downside is always being further away. So think about this. A person who is obsessed is as far away from the object of his obsession as a human can get. In other words, he's daffy. So this is the guy who has photographs of a particular woman all over his apartment, has never met her, has never asked her out, or even if he has met her, it's still an obsession. See, that's not normal. Now, in fact, if you're not really going out with somebody, going out, so to speak, at least, why would you have a photo of a woman in your apartment? Or if you're a girl, why would you have a photo of a guy in your apartment? See, it's not rational. So it's a fixation. The guy is fixed or fixated on this person. So there's actually and tremendous amount of distance between them. This guy has so little understanding that he can't see that his behavior is not sane. Now, let's look at the horizontal line at level 4. This occurs in many scales. You see a horizontal line at level 4. Level 4 is, in many cases, a neutral point. It's sort of the point of no return. So that line separates the sane from the insane. So if you have a relationship that's at level 1, 2, or 3, it's a sane relationship. If you have a relationship that's at 5, 6, or 7, it's an insane relationship. Obviously, the further down you go, the more insane it is. The further up you go, the more insane it is. Now, 4 is not particularly sane or insane. It's neutral. So, as I said, this manifestation of neutrality at level 4 shows up in many scales. So let's go through these. So we sort of covered 7. A person is obsessed about somebody. Now, this could show up as, sort of like a love obsession, but it could also be a hate obsession. This is like the guy who is sent to prison because a detective apprehended him and testified against him in court. And this guy, while he's in prison, is planning how he's going to get out and kill this detective. This happens. It happens with district attorneys, too. So the guy gets out. He's fixated. He has an obsession. This is not sensible. He's not going to get any money for this. He's just going to get in more trouble. Probably get the death penalty if he does this. So that's another type of a relationship that has a fixation. So, you always want to get even with this person. So it's like a revenge obsession, but it could also be a sexual obsession. So there's a lot of different ways this could occur. But it's the craziest relationship you could have. So think about this. How about Hitler being obsessed with the Jews? Right? He was obsessed. We have to get rid of these people. Most of them were harmless civilians. They didn't bother anybody. Why was he going around spending personnel and material rounding up harmless civilians who were just in their apartments, raising their families and going to work? That's an obsession. See, he was fixated on this. So this was quite insane. And this happens very often. For example, in America, you had this went on between the white men and the Indians, so-called Indians. And it happened both ways. Sometimes you would have Indian chiefs or warriors, braves as they were often called, who would be obsessed about killing the white men. So these would be the people they would find a cabin, they would slaughter the whole family in a vicious way, take their scalps, burn the whole thing down. What did they get out of that? Really nothing. It's just a fixation. And it happened the other way around too, where you had white men who were fixated on killing Native Americans. This went on for hundreds of years. So realize when you see this type of obsession, you're looking at somebody at the bottom of the scale. There is a relationship there, but it's an insane relationship. This is like people who go around, like blacks in America going around saying America is racist, white people are evil, and we should kill them all. Okay? That's an obsession. They have a relationship there, and they're fixated on it. Never mind the fact that the slaves were freed in 1863 by Abraham Lincoln, and we've had a black president, black Supreme Court justices, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Most of the people who followed Michael Jordan were white people. Most of the people who followed Reggie Jackson were white people, et cetera, et cetera. Most of the people who followed Ray Charles were white people. Okay? So are there a few racists? Of course. There are always a few idiots, okay, in anything. But this obsession with racism is not sane. Now, I agree if somebody does something to someone that's based on a racial animus, uh, that person is a racist and he should be punished. But he shouldn't be punished because he's a racist. He should be punished because he's violent. I mean, if a guy sits in his apartment and has racism in his mind, he's not bothering anybody. He's sitting there saying, yeah, blacks are no good or whites are no good or whatever. That's daffy. It's just daffy. And but that in itself is not a crime. But we want to motivate you to go out and do bad things to people. That's a crime. It's like the difference between racism and discrimination. Racism is not a crime. Discrimination is against the law. You see, that's a different thing. If you have people who say, no, I'm not renting you or selling you my house because you're black, that's discrimination. That's against the law. We don't know if a person's a racist or not because it's in his mind. You see, it's a mental illness. So having seen how many brilliant black people there are in America, there are very few people who are actually racist against blacks. It's a very tiny minority. It's people who are at the bottom of this scale. Next, level 6. Level 6 is enmity. Most people understand this. This is the level of hatred. So this is what you see when you have countries at war with one another, or gangs that are at war with one another, or if you have somebody who he's not necessarily obsessed, but he hates. In other words, there were lots of whites on the American frontier who hated Native Americans. And this was not without any cause. In other words, there was plenty of bloodshed on both sides. So it's still not sane, and it's not as crazy as obsession. In other words, the guy is not going around saying, I'm going to get those Indians, I'm going to get those Indians. He hates them, but he's not fixated on them. And the next thing up is disassociation. Now we're getting into what we see in the average person. When you dislike somebody, you disassociate from them. You say, yeah, I don't like this girl. I don't want to go out with her anymore. And you break up with her. That's disassociation. You disassociated from her because you dislike her. So that's a little bit insane. It's not terribly insane. Now, why is it insane? Well, an accepting person can be neutral. Say, well, we didn't get along. I'm a vegan and she's a carnivore, and I'm a Yankee fan and she's a Red Sox fan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so you can just be neutral. See, that's the sane way to approach something like that. So, yeah, we're not going out anymore, but she's not a part of my life. But you don't think about it. So you're not going around disliking the person. That is why there's a term called Trump derangement symptom. What is it called? Trump derangement syndrome, that you hear people say. People going around, I hate Donald Trump, I hate Donald Trump, I hate Donald Trump. They are at or near the bottom of the scale. I'm not telling you who to vote for. I'm not telling you, I'm not endorsing him. I'm just saying that is somebody whose relationship with Donald Trump is not sane. Why go around thinking that? I mean, in every election, I vote for somebody. And there's a person on the other side. I don't go around thinking that I hate that person or I dislike that person. I voted, the election is over, whether my guy won or lost, and that's it. It's over. So you're neutral. So that's level 4, neutral. So neutral, there's no insanity. You just have no opinion about it at all. This is what association is, right? So you go to the bank, you want to cash a check, you go up to the teller, hello, here's my check, here's my ID, right? So you're having a little bit of a relationship with this person for 10 minutes. Now, this might even be somebody that you've seen before. You walk in, they say, oh, hello, Mr. Bean, how are you today? And you say, well, I have these traveler's checks I want to cash. Okay, see? So you have a little bit of a relationship, but it's just an association. So there's enough understanding there for you to not have any animus against the person. See, you don't really care because you're not concerned about this person. You're just going in there to do business. So you go to your chiropractor or your acupuncturist or your medical doctor or your dentist, right? You associate with them. They're not your friends. You go and you pay your $500. He fixes your cavities and you go home. See, that's association. It's neutral. Then we come up to 3. At 3, we find friendship. Friendship is where you like somebody. So you see, it's getting closer here. You feel some closeness with this person. It's like an internal sense of affinity that you have. And that always accompanies some understanding. You understand this person. You see, you can sort of, even if you're not holding the same opinion, you understand the person. In other words, well, all right, I can understand how that person would do that. In other words, maybe you don't like tall women, for example, but your friend marries a tall woman. So you can understand that. You see, it's like not something that you don't understand. You understand he likes tall women. Okay. So he's still your friend. You like him. It's not something you don't understand, even though you don't have the same opinion. Then it goes up to harmony. This is what we call love, where you have two people in harmony. They harmonize with one another. So it's like in a musical performance. So you have the guitarist and the bassist, and they're in tune. They're playing in the same key. They harmonize with one another. Or this is more obvious, like in a choir. We have 50 or 60 people they're singing. They're singing different parts, and it's a harmony, right? Where everything is the way it should be, and that's why it's pleasant. So you could say, "Oh, I love to see the Philharmonic play." You literally love them because it's harmonious. And the opposite of that would be cacophony, which is noise, right? So you go someplace that's very noisy, like Midtown Manhattan at 2:00 in the afternoon. It's not really a particularly pleasant place to be. There's horns, there's dogs barking, there's people yelling. There's a lot going on. There's sirens. So it's cacophonous. So most people don't really like that. They'd rather be in their apartment. So that's 2. Then we come up to 1 unity. Now, again, as I said before, most people are going to have trouble understanding the extremes of the scales. And this is a perfect example. Most people really don't understand obsession. They're not like that. They don't do that. They don't get it. And most people are not going to understand unity either. Unity is beyond love. Unity is where people are of one mind. They duplicate one another. I used to have a friend, now deceased, who I knew from the age of 4, and I knew until he died a couple of years ago. He grew up literally 2 blocks from me. I knew his family, he knew my family. And sometimes he would talk, and I would finish his sentence. He would say something, he would pause, and I would finish the sentence for him. And he'd say, yeah. So I knew this guy so well, I knew exactly what he was going to say. And so, there was like really a closeness there that went to a level of duplication, where I knew exactly what he was trying to say, and I could finish the line for him. And he didn't mind either, see, because there was unity. It's not like, don't put words in my mouth. It was like, oh, thank you. So obviously there was zero distance. I mean, we grew up in the same time, in the same place, went to the same church, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there was a lot of understanding. You know, we both rooted for the same sports teams and voted for the same people in elections, et cetera, et cetera. So there was tremendous understanding, very little distance between us. So we were almost like two versions of the same person, really closer than many siblings are. Because there's lots of siblings who are not close at all. So this is something that you find in the military. We'll have guys who went through World War II or went through Korea or went through Vietnam together and bled together and patched one another up together and slept in the cold together, you know. And these guys get a closeness that they don't feel with anyone else. And if you talk to these people or observe them or listen to them, you'll see this, that there's a bond. So you haven't seen the guy in 40 years, and when you see him, it's just like you had seen him yesterday, because there's zero distance. You get a fraternal closeness that happens in that bonding that people who go to war together and survive, they develop this. They really, really understand one another. I mean, when you're in a foxhole with somebody and bullets are flying by, you really get to understand that guy. So that's a good example of unity, how that occurs between comrades who've been through the war together. Any questions?
No questions. Wonderful.
Yeah, so this is really good in look at your relationship and spot where it is. And it will explain what's going on. Then you can try to move it up one level and it will be better. So this is a scale that everybody should use and can use. Next.
Very good. Here we go.
Okay. Now, this is going to take some explaining. The scale of life spheres. This is one of these places where I had to name it something that people don't normally think about or say. What are life spheres? So, in life, there are spheres of activity. And they are actually concentric spheres. Now, everybody starts out at level 7. When you have a baby born, he starts out as level 7. So, what does he embrace? He doesn't even embrace himself. He's not even up to that. He's just sort of lying there in the crib and hoping that some more milk shows up. I mean, so what is his challenge? His challenge is to succeed as an individual. You see? Now, it's well known that children don't really have a sense, I should say, infants don't have a sense of others. There's a point at which the kid gets the idea, oh, that's another person. See? That's like a new idea. And that's the beginnings of coming out of the introversion sphere. So then if he goes up to the individual sphere, okay, now he's not introverted, he's an individual. You see, that's a larger sphere. So that's what I mean by sphere. And then if you go up to the interpersonal sphere, oh, now he has friends. Now he has relationships with his cousins and he has a girlfriend. That's interpersonal. It's a larger sphere. So to the degree a person ascends the scale, he has more space. He literally has more space. So he encompasses more of life. So now, having explained what I mean by life spheres, let's go back and look at the type. So this is a linear scale, meaning there's no chance of confusing levels 1 and 7. They're completely different. It's quantum, meaning you leap instantaneously from sphere to sphere. So there's nothing in between level 4 and level 5. Either you're at 4 or you're at 5. So there will be an instant in which the person goes from 5 up to 4. Poof, just like that. He's a member of a team, right? So you have a guy, he's got a family, right? So he joins Little League. And there'll be some point at which he goes, oh, I'm part of a team. Yeah, this is not my family. This is just a team. You see, it's like a new idea that he gets. I'm part of a team now. See, that's an expanded sphere of influence. Now, this is a general scale, meaning once you find a person, whether it's yourself or another, on this scale, you're done with that. That's where the person is. The person is at that level. This is not context driven. This is, in a sense, it includes all the contexts of life, because it goes all the way from a person who's introverted all the way up to a person who embraces all of life. So all of the contexts are in here. You see, it can't possibly be context driven. This is analyzing the contexts to see how you absorb them or how you embrace them. Okay, so there's the sphere, and then next to that, it tells you what this person embraces. And next to that, it tells you the challenge. So in other words, the person embraces a certain thing. In other words, it's a limitation. And then the challenge is to go up to the next level. Well, that's true for every scale, isn't it? So I want to make it clear, because that's how you can spot this person. You see, let's say you have a guy and he's sort of saying, oh, I need to have a girlfriend. I don't have a significant other. I'm lonely. Well, that guy's at level 6. He doesn't have the interpersonal sphere. There are people who are solipsistic. You know, they're loners, so to speak. So this person, he might be doing very well as an individual. You know, maybe he's making $2,000 a week, but it's only about himself. He's embracing himself, his kitchen, his car, his choice of TV show. You see, it doesn't include anybody else. So his aspiration or challenge, if he doesn't even aspire to it, but the challenge to him would be to succeed in a personal relationship. In other words, that would be a challenge for this guy, to get this guy to embrace something other than himself. So that's why it's called the challenge. So it's important to understand how this works in your mind. So when a person is at level 7, he's introverted. Why is he introverted? He's introverted because he does not even embrace himself. So this is a person you find in an insane asylum. He doesn't have a life. In other words, he's committed. They come in, they give him food, they put him in a bed, they give him his medication. That's his life. You know, he doesn't even embrace himself. Clearly, this person is introverted. In other words, he's not reaching out to any of these other 6 levels. He's looking inward. So this is what I would call nihilistic. This person is not connected to anything. He doesn't have a family. He doesn't even have a self. Now, you could find a person, for example, a person who's been very sick for a long time who can be like this. uh, where he doesn't have a life anymore. He's just in bed taking medications. His life consists of, I have to go to the bathroom. I have to drink water. That's it. That's like he's barely staying alive. This is an introverted person. He's thinking about, how am I going to get rid of this broken leg, or how am I going to get rid of these migraines, or how am I going to get rid of this chronic nausea that I have, or whatever it is. See? So it could be a physically sick person. So in a sense, this person is nihilistic in that he doesn't even embrace himself. So his challenge would be to succeed as an individual. You see, he's not succeeding as an individual. He's not well enough to get up and go in the kitchen and make himself breakfast. This person needs a nurse. Now, whether it's a psychiatric case or a medical case, it's the same thing. Now, not all these people are in hospitals of one kind or another. Many of them are just stuck at home. The type of person who won't go out, won't get a job, doesn't have any friends. He is not even really a person in the sense that we would normally think of it. He's nihilistic. He embraces nothing. So this person is either diagnosably mentally ill or diagnosably physically ill. So let's say you have somebody who's dying of a brain tumor. He knows he's going to die. He's in pain all the time. He doesn't leave the house. His life consists of taking pain medication. And, he can't really eat because he gets nauseous. So that person is at level 7. So this is a person who should be in a hospital. Now, up from that is the individual sphere. Now, this is what we call the loner. This person is egocentric. It's all about him. He doesn't think about other people. He embraces himself. I'm going to get myself a new shirt. I'm going to get myself a diamond ring. I'm going to get myself a Corvette, whatever it is. So it would be a challenge to him to succeed in a personal relationship. So this could be a guy, he could be estranged from his whole family. He doesn't talk to his family. He has no relationship with his parents or his siblings. He doesn't have any friends. This is a loner. Okay? This is not a healthy person. Now, again, there could be multiple reasons for this. Some people are born with some horrible disability that makes it really impossible to have a personal relationship. So, this person might spend his whole life in a wheelchair or in a hospital bed. But again, whether it's a mental illness or physical illness, this is a person who's able to embrace himself. But there are probably billions of these people in the world who, when you pass them on the street, you don't really see anything. But if you inquired the way a therapist would inquire or a pastor would inquire, you would find out this person is only about himself. He's egocentric. Above that is what we call the interpersonal sphere. Now, this person has interpersonal relationships. I call this family-centric. Now, family can mean many things. You could have 2 gay guys who are very close and they live together. That's their family. Okay? In their mind, that's their family. Now, there are people who would say, well, that's not a family. Well, okay, that's not what we're talking about here. This is interpersonal. So this person embraces only close persons. So you see this in a child. The child embraces mom, dad, and the siblings. Maybe at some point he starts to embrace the uncles and the aunts and the cousins, you see? So it will be a challenge for this person to exceed with a team. One of the reasons that it's advisable to put children into sports or group activities is so that they will learn to succeed with a team. That is a very important skill. So you have them join a little league, and you say, "No, it's not your turn. It's Johnny's turn, and you go after him." See, he's learning this, and oh, I see. I'm part of a team. Uh, Now it's you had your turn. Now the next guy gets to hit. And okay, now you're going to play second, and Johnny's going to play third, and Freddie's going to play second or first or whatever it is. You see, you have a group that works as a team. You can't have everybody playing third base. So often you have a guy who is really a shortstop, but the coach doesn't put him at shortstop, he puts him at second base. He's still part of a team. So an interpersonal sphere is somebody you're close to. So this is an interpersonal closeness, some kind of a familial context. So it's not just yourself, there's a family of some kind. So even if it's just a guy is close to his dad, that's an interpersonal relationship. See, that guy might not be able to work with a team. So that would be a challenge to him. Above that, you get into the team sphere. I call this group centric, where you are centered around a group. You see how your space is expanding. When you're at level 7, you're a point. A point, if you recall from geometry, has no dimension, has no size. It only has a location. That is what a level 7 person is like. When you get up to 6, you have some space, but it's only yourself. When you get up to 5, now it expands to include mom and dad or whoever else you're close to. Now, when you get up to 4, the team sphere, now it includes the team, your little league team, your football team, or let's say you're a policeman. Everybody in your precinct is part of your team. Or if you're a fireman, all the members in the firehouse are part of your team. So you can embrace the team. You can play as a team. The idea of a team player. So still, you're limited to the team. So there's billions of these people. So you'll find, for example, a fireman, he's very close to all the rest of the guys in the firehouse. They're all friends together, and that's it. He's not close to anybody else. Everybody else is external to him or alien to him. See, the challenge for this guy is to succeed as a culture. He's not part of the culture. He doesn't think of himself as an American or a Presbyterian or a Jew or something like that. He's stuck with just this team. It's some kind of a team. Maybe he's in a military organization. Or like if you go to a school where you have school spirit, that is a team sphere. It's group centric. Now we go up 3. Now realize everybody starts at 7, right? You're working your way up. Now you come up to 3. 3 is ethnocentric. So now this is a guy, he thinks of himself as an American, or he thinks of himself as an Italian, or he thinks of himself as a Mexican, right? It's ethnocentric. So this guy embraces all the members of that culture. This used to be very strong in the United States, particularly after World War II, because it was a bonding experience for the whole country, where people were very patriotic. They embraced the American culture. Almost the whole country embraced the American culture. Now, the challenge to this person would be to succeed as humanity. Not many people get to that level where the person wants to succeed as humanity. So let's go from 3 up to 2, the human sphere. I call this anthropocentric. This person can embrace humans, all humans, but only humans. See, this person, he doesn't care about the flora and the fauna. They're not humans. So this is what we generally think of as a good citizen. See, this person is concerned about the environment. He's concerned about not having wars. He's concerned about not polluting the oceans. He's concerned about humans in general. He embraces humans. Now, the challenge for this guy would be to succeed as all of life. So this is a guy who loves people, gets along with people, wants to further people, but he goes hunting and he shoots a deer, and it becomes venison for him. See, so that's like it's not part of his sphere. Then you get up to level 1, life-centric, the life sphere. This person embraces all life forms. So this is somebody who would be concerned about animals and plants. And this person's challenge would be to transcend life. So once you transcend life, you're not human anymore, are you? So the person, the martyr who willingly dies, he goes to heaven, he's transcending life. So he's not a human anymore because he has transcended life. So humans can embrace all life forms if they get to this level. Now, here's what you have to understand. Very often you see faux manifestations of these levels. Now, let me tell you what I mean by that. Let's say you have a woman who hates men, right? Won't go out with men, is a radical feminist, but loves pets, belongs to PETA, right? Belongs to the ASPCA. If you process this person or give therapy to this person to get this person to start accepting men, that love of animals will evanesce because it is a false manifestation. This happens in therapy. So you have a person who hates people, the person says, "Oh, I hate people." There's a scene from a movie about an actual living person where they're at a bar and the woman says to him, "I hate people. Do you hate people?" He says, "No, but I feel better when they're not around." That's an actual famous poet who said that. So that person hates people. So if you find this person embracing cats and dogs, that is something that would go away if you could give this person enough therapy where they didn't hate people. You see? That is what this explains, this manifestation. So that is why these are concentric spheres. So you expand from a point out to a small sphere, then at 5 to a larger sphere, at 4 to a larger sphere, at 3 to a larger sphere, and the largest sphere includes all of life, where you are benevolent toward all creatures. Like St. Francis of Assisi was said to have been able to communicate with animals. He loved animals and they loved him. He was at level 1. So it's obvious to me from studying the man that he not only embraced humans, he embraced all life forms. And very often you'll see Hindus, the Hindu Raja, as he walks, he has somebody with a broom sweeping the street in front of him. I don't know if you've ever seen this. Literally sweeping the ground in front of him to make sure he does not inadvertently step on an insect. Because this person embraces all of life. He doesn't want to step on an insect. So there's a type of person who will harm animals for fun. This is like the kid who sets the cat on fire, turns out to be a psychopath when he grows up. Uh, most people won't do that, but it doesn't mean they embrace them. So most people don't really embrace all life forms. That's why they eat animals. Now you can say, well, what about eating plants? Well, yes, that's a good point. But there's a difference between going out and destroying the flowers just to be vengeful and eating some lettuce. See, it's not the same thing. So, in other words, you can take an action against an entity even though you're embracing the entity. This is why we have assisted suicide in certain states. You have a guy, he's dying of some terminal illness, nothing can be done for him. And so you can get a prescription from the doctor for medication that you take and it kills you. Basically, what they do is they just give you something like Seconal, and you take an overdose of it and you go to sleep and you never wake up again. So it's just like falling asleep. So does that mean the doctor hates the patient? No, the doctor loves the patient. That's why he's euthanizing the patient, so he doesn't have to live a life of eternal suffering until someday he dies. So there's a difference between, for example, if I get a mosquito in my house, I kill it. Doesn't mean I hate mosquitoes. I don't want to get a mosquito bite. Mosquitoes transmit malaria. So that doesn't mean I hate them. So like if I'm walking along and I see an ant, I go around it or I step over it. I don't want to hurt that ant. I have nothing against that ant. But if he gets in my cupboard, he's dead because it's my cupboard, you see? So there's a difference between embracing something and doing something that might harm it. Like when the parent spanks the kid, it doesn't mean the parent doesn't love the kid. Very often the parent spanks the kid because he loves the kid. Like when my son was 3, he ran into traffic. I slapped him on the butt. Don't do that. Those cars can kill you. He cried, and I didn't have to hit him again for another 10 or 15 years, you see. So you have to keep that clear in your mind that you can embrace something, but also take an action against it. This happens all the time in the military. So the company commander says, men, we're going to take that machine gun nest today. And he expects some of the men are going to get hurt. Some of them are probably going to die. It doesn't mean he doesn't embrace them. He loves these guys. Trust me. I was in the military. Military people love one another. That is the team bond that I was talking about. Okay? Don't you dare go near my men. You see? It's you embrace them. But it doesn't mean you're not going to take the machine gun nest because that's your job. So somebody dies, you feel bad about it, and everybody loses a friend, but that's part of being in the military. So all of this comes into play in this scale of life spheres. So this is important in selecting somebody. Let's say you're looking for a mate. If this person is totally fixated on oneself, you're not going to have a successful interpersonal relationship with that person. That person only cares about oneself. So you see this often with beautiful women. All they care about is getting their nails done, going in the tanning bed, going to the hairdresser, going to the masseuse. They're not going to cook dinner for you. And so the rich guy marries her because she's beautiful, because he can hire people for all those things. Oh, here's your allowance of $1,000 a week that you can blow, So don't expect that person is going to take care of you. So you do see some people who are stuck at level 6 who get in a sexual relationship. But for them, it's not really an interpersonal thing because they're just feathering their own nests. So this is a gold digger. This is what a gold digger is. She's going to marry some rich guy. He's going to give her own Maserati and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And she's not really at level 5. She's still at level 6. But a guy who's a little more perceptive can figure this out and see, okay, this is not somebody who I'm going to be able to have an interpersonal relationship with. Her closest relationship is with her hairdresser, you know, or her nail person, or her masseuse. That's as far as it goes. So you can use this. If you have a business, you want somebody who's a team player. This is something you have to pay attention to. You have to find out. So ask the guy, you ever do any sports? Yeah, I was on the football team. There you go. That guy's a team player. Football is a team sport, period. There's no I in team. If you're on a team and you don't play for the team doesn't like you and they get rid of you. They say this guy's not a team player. And why would you do it anyway? You see, if a guy's not a team player, why would he want to be on a basketball team or baseball team or a soccer team? That guy is the type of guy who would be a boxer or a wrestler or a swimmer because it's not a team thing. See, when he's in there and he's doing his 100-yard sprint in the water, it's got nothing to do with anybody else. See? So it's the same thing with a boxer. He doesn't have to be a member of a team. He's on his own. So you can sort of see this in people. That, you know, the type of guy who, yeah, he's a bicyclist, he's a swimmer, he does martial arts, but he's never been on a football team, a baseball team, a soccer team, etc. He's not a team player. So this is something to look for because you don't want to get somebody in your business who's not a team player. I hired a lot of people in my life, okay? I went out of my way to look for somebody who was a team player. So I would say, okay, these are the rules. They were written down. We all abide by these rules, okay? Are you okay with these? If you didn't give me an immediate yes, we were done. Because you're not a team player. These are the rules, okay? If you like the rules, we welcome you. If you don't, I wish you luck in whatever else you do because you're not going to be part of this team. Because you have to get people who are going to work together. Okay? So you can use this in a variety of ways. If you see somebody who is manifesting a higher level, oh, we have to save humanity, but has no close persons in his life, if that person gets some therapy, that enthusiasm for mankind will evanesce because it's not a true level. It's some kind of a phony acting out type of a thing. This is what we call virtue signaling. Virtue signaling. You know, oh yes, I'm a lover of the environment. You know, and then you find out that the guy treats his wife like dirt. Well, that guy's doing that because he wants you to like him. See, he's not really a lover of the environment. He's not really at level 1. This guy can't even get along with his wife. He's down at level 5 or 6. So you have to be able to not get thrown off by this. Don't think because somebody manifests something that he's at that level. We have to evaluate the whole person. And you do that by looking from the bottom. Does this guy take care of himself? Okay, that's level 6. Does he have a interpersonal life? He does. He has a family. Okay, good. That's 5. And you see, well, does he belong to some kind of a team? Oh, yeah, this guy is a Democrat. See, he volunteers for the, okay, so that's part of it. That's a team. That's four, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So obviously, the population, it gets less dense as you get up the scale. There are fewer and fewer people. So there are very few people at level one. There are more people at level one who are pretending to be at level one than are actually at level one because they want to look good. They want you to think they care about all the birds and the bees and the animals and the plants, when in fact, they really don't. So I have a saying that I use sometimes because I was raised as a Christian and I've been around Christians. It's something I call phony Christians. They're not real Christians. You say to a guy, "You a Christian?" Yes. He fills out a form, he puts Christian. But if you watch this guy, he's not a Christian. He doesn't behave like a Christian. Or, you say there's such a thing as Catholics who are in favor of abortion. Hello. If you are in favor of abortion, you're not a Catholic. You're a Protestant. Anybody can write Catholic on a form. But an actual Catholic, if you embrace Catholicism, part of their teachings is abortion is murder. It's against the religion. There's no such thing as a pro-choice Catholic. That person is a phony. Congratulations, you're a Protestant. Any questions?
No questions. Remarkable. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, the scale of government. So this is really a revolutionary idea. You hear all the time about the left and the right. I got news for you. There's no left or right. Left and right are things you find on your body. You have a left hand and a right hand. There is no left and right in government. That is arbitrary. And that is why it's so confusing. So, for example, Thomas Jefferson was considered a liberal in his day. If you actually inspected the things he wrote and the things he did, by today's standards, no liberal would have anything to do with him. They would excoriate him. So this whole binary distinction is counterproductive, dysfunctional, and misleading. It's not left or right. It's up or down. And this is the up or down. Now, this is a spiral scale. It's very easy to confuse level 1 with level 7. I run into this all the time. People get mixed up. They think they're libertarians when they're actually anarchists, or they think they're anarchists when they're actually libertarians. And it's not only a self-assignment, but assigning others. And this is a catastrophic mistake because a libertarian is a very upscale person. An anarchist is a very downscale person. If anarchists had their way, there would be no police. There would be nobody to protect you. There wouldn't even be a threat. So this is what you find on the frontier, right? You have some mountain man in 1830 in the Rocky Mountains who's a trapper. There was a lot of money in trapping beaver at that time. And these guys would go there, they would trap beaver, and in the spring or whatever, they would go to civilization and they would sell their beaver pelts for a lot of money. Okay. That was complete anarchy. If some other trapper came on, we might kill him and steal his pelts. Or if some Native American found him, we might kill him just because he's a white guy. So that's anarchy. Libertarian functions on the teachings of Thomas Paine, who famously said, government is at best a necessary evil. Libertarians believe that government is at best a necessary evil, which means we don't want to have a lot of government. That is why Thomas Jefferson said, the government that governs least governs best. That is pure libertarianism. So Jefferson was not saying we shouldn't have police, we shouldn't have a militia, we shouldn't have firemen, we shouldn't have a government. He was saying you want to reduce it to the minimum. Now, this is a gradual scale, meaning there is an infinitude of gradations between each level. You move gradually from one level to the next. So you'll run into a person who's like halfway between being a socialist and a fascist. And if he comes upscale a little bit, he'll become a socialist. And if he goes downscale, he'll become a fascist. Now, this is a general scale. So you can evaluate a government with this. You look at the government, and it's at a specific level. For example, I'll just tell you straight out. Right now, the four most dominant governments on earth are People's Republic of China, the United States, the European Union, and the Russian Federation. All of them are at level 5. This is not an opinion. This is just like telling you a tulip has no thorns. It is an objective thing. You can see it once you know the levels. Now, what are we measuring with this scale? This is important because I said it's not left or right, it's up or down. So if it's up or down, what is this up or down? What is the yardstick here? So above level 1, you have complete trust and agreement, which is unattainable in human society. But you can get very, very close, potentially. And below level 7, there's no trust or agreement. When there's anarchy because there's no trust or agreement. So some big guy comes, he outweighs you by 100 pounds, he kills you, and he takes your wife. That's anarchy. So that was caveman, right? Guy comes along, hits you with a club, takes your dinner. So there's no government there. So you need to realize that in order to have a high-level government, you have to have trust and agreement. When you have a low-level government, it's because they're in the absence of trust and agreement. So if you look at the United States, for example, the United States under Dwight Eisenhower was full of trust and agreement. People trusted the government trusted the people trusted one another. There was a lot of agreement. Everybody agrees. Oh, Jack Benny's funny. Ed Sullivan has a great show. There was a lot of agreement. Elvis Presley is a great singer. Okay, it was a country full of trust or agreement. The country was at a much higher level on this scale at that time, and it has been deteriorating ever since. So it's not hard to figure this out. Just look at the country. How much trust or agreement is there? Because look, if the people can be trusted, you don't need a lot of government. For example, I mentioned Eisenhower, during the Eisenhower administration, which was the 50s, there was peace and prosperity. You could trust your husband or your wife not to fool around with somebody else. It didn't happen very much. Did it happen? Of course it happened. But it was not now where it's like pandemic. Okay? Most people first got through school, then got a job, then saved money, then got married and had a family. That's all gone now. See, that's a lot of agreement. There was agreement. This is how you do it. So people were happy to stand at attention, recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Now, half of the country wouldn't recite the Pledge of Allegiance if you paid them. They would give you 4-letter words instead. And it is indisputable now that the vast majority of Americans absolutely do not trust the government, any government. They don't trust the federal government. They don't trust the state government. They don't trust the municipal government. They don't trust the county government. They don't trust it. Well, that tells you it must be a very low level of government. You see, there's not a lot of agreement. So when the government does things that the people don't agree with, how can they trust it? So this tells you that a lot about what makes a government. You see, there's a difference between a country and an empire. The Romans, they went around, they conquered all of these countries. They let them keep their religions, they let them keep their cultures. They didn't care. As long as you pay your taxes, we leave you alone. That was their approach. And so it was an empire. There wasn't agreement. See, these various factions of the Roman Empire did not agree with the other factions of the Roman Empire. It was not a country. The United States used to be a country. It had a unitary culture. For example, in the 50s, everybody listened to pretty much the same radio station. We turn on a radio station. First, they would play Frank Sinatra. Then they would play Elvis Presley. See? Same radio station. Everybody listened to it. Now, that started to break down in the 60s, where you had different fractions of the country. That's when you started having this station plays rock music, and this station plays pop music, and this station plays country music. You see, it's fragmented. So anytime you have fragmentation, you have disagreement. And wherever there's disagreement, there's distrust, which is why America is now a seething cauldron of hatred, distrust, and disagreement. And there's a lot of talk about a civil war, a possible civil war. Now, I've been arguing for years, we're already in a civil war. It started around the year 2000. And the reason that it hasn't erupted the way it did in 1861 is that that's not in vogue anymore. You don't kill people now by shooting them with a gun. You go on TV and you lie about them. You have propaganda. You pay off media people. For example, all the major media get money from the government covertly. So the CIA goes in. You know, the CIA gave Jeff Bezos, I think it was $500 million. He's in their pocket. So if you have that kind of money, you're not going to turn your back on it. That would be very strange. So it's all corrupt. It's not a country anymore. It's an empire. It's an empire held together by force. So right now, you have the state of Texas and the federal government talking about fighting in court and actually using their military. So the next step would be for the federal government to send troops into Texas and the Texas militia or National Guard to fire on the federal troops. That is the next step. We are only one step away from that right now. And if you follow the news, you'll see that's what's going on. So that's why we have riots. The disagreement and the distrust is so great that rioting goes on. Okay? That's an anarchic element, isn't it? So this is about trust and agreement. So think about this. Nazi Germany. How much trust and agreement was there in Nazi Germany? In case you haven't studied this subject, as I have, I'll tell you, very little. So, for example, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a famous theologian, was hanged by the Nazis 2 or 3 days before the end of the war because he would not sanction the things they were doing. He did not think it was right to exterminate the Jews. Okay? That is not a Christian thing to do. So he didn't trust the government and they didn't trust him. So they killed him. We're talking about a famous theologian, a leading author who was highly regarded by thousands of people, and they put him to death. So, or similarly, when Galileo was propounding the heliocentric theory, the Catholic Church brought him up on charges. And you know why they didn't kill him? Galileo was so beloved and so famous. He was like the Elon Musk of his day. And so they said, well, we're just going to put you under house arrest. And he spent the rest of his life under house arrest. Now realize there were no telephones, there were no telegraphs. So putting somebody under house arrest, you were really cutting them off. Now I assume he was able to write letters to people, but I honestly don't know if they interfered with that, or maybe they just said you're not going to write any letters. But that's how they got rid of him. They didn't want to kill him because it would have been too scandalous to kill a genius who was beloved by the entire peninsula of Italy. But that's essentially the same thing as what I was saying about with the Nazis. It's just the same type of, it's a fascist type behavior. So that is why in recent years you're hearing in America, you're not allowed to say certain things. Freedom of speech is dead. And it has come out that the FBI was in cahoots with the big tech companies to squelch certain information on the internet. So if that's why they got rid of, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting his name. The guy from InfoWars, Alex something. He was very, very big. They got rid of him. So they got somebody to bring a phony lawsuit against him for some vast amount of money he has no way to pay. So same thing with Donald Trump. I'm not saying you should vote for him or I like him or anything else, but the government is trying to get rid of him. Okay, I know law, and I have studied all of those cases. They are all insubstantial cases. In other words, they are not legitimate legal actions. They're specious. But they got him tied up in court. Now, do I think he's going to get convicted? No, maybe. But if he does, it'll be because all the people in the jury hate him, not because of the facts. And then he'll go for an appeal. Now, if the appeals judges are half as smart as they ought to be, they'll overturn it. They'll say, look, there's no crime here. Nobody was harmed, and that'll be the end of it. And I think that's how this is just going to turn out. But I don't think that's why they're prosecuting him. They're prosecuting him to make him look bad, to discourage people from voting for him. That is a fascist tactic. So again, maybe you would prefer voting for somebody else. That's none of my business. I'm just telling you, it is a clear indication that the United States is at level 5. So there is one paragraph in the chapter in which I go through the entire history of the United States in one very long sentence and explain how it went from the Articles of Confederation, which was the original government of the United States, which was a libertarian government. And I show with specificity, with dates, how it went down to now it's at level 5. What is level 5? Controls brutally. So if you see the things that the federal government is doing now, it's brutal. If you are in one of these categories that they don't like, they come after you. And they will just make up something. It's actually not that unusual for prosecutors to actually go after somebody. For example, there was a famous mafioso named Sonny Francis. He was framed for murder by the government because they couldn't get him any other way and they wanted to get rid of him. In case you haven't heard, mafia dons don't shoot people. They have people do it for them. So saying that this guy murdered somebody on its face at first blush is preposterous. He would never do that. He would say, Guido, take care of that guy. He wouldn't say murder him. He would say, take care of him. And Guido would take care of him. Okay. Now, does that implicate him in the murder? Yes. That makes him guilty of first degree murder. But that's not what they accused him of. So that happens. Now, when this happened, the government had not yet gotten to level 5, so it was not a widespread thing. It was more like an individual vendetta. For example, the government tried to get Al Capone for years and years. They couldn't get him on anything. You know how they got him? His bookkeeper got in trouble, turned state's evidence, and gave them the evidence to prove that he evaded taxes, and they put him away on tax evasion. That's all they could do. If that bookkeeper had not sung like a canary, they never would have gotten him. Just like Carlo Gambino, the head of the Gambino crime family. They never got him on anything. He was very smart and careful. I'm not endorsing that behavior. I'm just saying they didn't dream up some phony thing to try to convict him. And so he died in his home at, I think, 76 from a heart condition. Okay. They never got him on anything. So that's a smart man. He was able to navigate the waters in such a way that they couldn't get anything on him. And again, I don't think you should do anything illegal. I'm just saying this tells you a lot about the government. So at a libertarian level, very little control is needed. At an anarchist level, there's really no government. That's what anarchy means. It literally means no government. The word anarchy means no government. So there's no attempt to control. This is really about control. Government is about control. That is what the government does. It controls things. It says, we have a building code. Your studs must be 14 inches apart. You're not allowed to build a house with the studs 15 inches apart because it's our building code, and we are not going to give you the okay. When our inspector comes, he'll say, no, you have to tear this down and rebuild it. We're not giving you the okay to go ahead. Okay, that's what government does. They control things. Now, the more untrustworthy and disagreeable the populace is, the more control you need. So, as I point out, there is no major government on earth, if any, that is above level 4. So levels 1, 2, or 3 do not exist on earth. Now, there may be some little government that I don't know anything about. Some like Belize. I don't know anything about Belize. But we're talking about any of the big countries. None of them are above level 4. None of them. Now, at level 5, there's no government. The lowest level of government is communism. Communism controls covertly. And let me tell you what I mean by covert. They say, we're doing this for the benefit of the people. We love the people. Okay? The People's Republic of China. Okay? That's covert. So if you do a little something they don't like, they kill you or they put you in a concentration camp. So that belies this covert presentation. Communism is covert. It pretends to be for the people when it isn't. So, of course, the commissars live in luxury. They all have limousines and dachas and condos and airplanes and everything else, and everybody else can't get enough food. That's communism. Up from that is fascism. Now, fascism is not covert. Fascism is brutal. Fascism says, you do what we say or you die. That's what you got from the Nazis. It's what you got from Mussolini. That's what you get from the mafia. The mafia is a fascist organization. They control brutally. Okay? They say, you are going to kill this guy. And if you don't do it, they kill you. Okay? That's controlling brutally. That's what fascism is. That's what you have in the United States now. Up from that is socialism. Socialism controls antipathetically. Now, what that means is when you are in a socialist country, the government is antipathetic. They're not embracing you and being kind and polite. They're antipathetic. They're not going to hit you over the head with a club, but they're also not going to be gracious about it. So the bottom four levels are insane. They are literally insane. It's not sane behavior. The top three levels are the sane ones. So democracy controls indifferently. So in a democracy, people are kind of indifferent. Yeah, you vote and then you forget about it. See, that's sane. But saner than that is a republic, which is what the Constitution gave to America. They control cautiously. If you listen, or it would be better to say read, although you could hear an audiobook, to what the founding fathers said and wrote, they were very cautious. All of their deliberations were, well, what about this? Excuse me. Oh, well, if that happens, well, okay, then we have. So that's why you have two houses of Congress. That's why you have the states have some power and the Congress has some power. See, there's separation of powers. And the whole point of separation of powers was to prevent what happened in Germany in 1933. Okay, to prevent a Hitler or Mussolini or a Stalin from taking over. So they were very cautious. Their deliberations were all about caution. And they had a hell of a time, if you go back and read it, getting agreement, which is why the famous quote, when Franklin came out of after the signing of the Constitution, a lady said, Dr. Franklin, what kind of a government are we going to have? And he said famously, a republic if you can keep it. And many of the founding fathers said, this is the best we can figure out. In other words, they weren't enthused about this. They were cautious. It could very easily have been that Washington took over and became king. In fact, there were many people who wanted him to be the king. He said no. He after the war, he resigned and he went back to his farm. Okay, that really made it possible for America to become a republic, because it could easily have been a monarchy. But it's to his credit that he did that. And similarly, after the first term, he didn't want a second term. It took months and months of people talking him into it, where he finally agreed, okay, I'll serve another term, begrudgingly. So he wanted a republic, and the founding fathers all wanted a republic, and that's what the Constitution gives you. Now, in case you haven't noticed, the Constitution has been largely ignored since about 1930. So, for example, the Supreme Court overturned many of the actions of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. They said, you can't do that. It's unconstitutional. Didn't stop people from trying. It's been going on ever since. Now, if you want to really see something unconstitutional, how about people in the government getting together and killing Jack Kennedy, which is what happened. The government killed him. CIA was behind it. The FBI covered it up. And Lyndon Baines Johnson was the orchestrator of the whole thing. How's that for unconstitutional? We're going to kill the chief executive. All right, that's as unconstitutional as you can get. And so you see this all the time. If you listen to the rhetoric, you'll see in the United States, what are we saying? This is unconstitutional. This is unconstitutional. Doesn't stop them. They don't give a damn because the Constitution gave us a republic. The United States stopped being a republic in 1828 when Jackson took over. You know, there was a ruling, there was a law passed to protect the Native Americans in Congress. And Jackson just ignored it. And there was a Supreme Court ruling that it was constitutional. He had to obey it. He said, no, I'm not obeying it. See, right there, that was unconstitutional. Jackson was an unapologetic slave owner and a brutal, genocidal murderer of Native Americans. He wanted there to be as few Native Americans as possible. It's not a subtle point. Go back and read it. So that's where America went down to level 3. And it stayed at level 3 until 1932. And then when the New Deal came in, you started having the transition into socialism, gradually, and it was completed in 1964, where America was now a socialist country. And that continued to deteriorate until the Twin Towers were brought down, which was another thing done by the government, was an inside job. If you think that the government's explanation of 9/11 is true, you obviously don't know physical science. I can tell you, having come from a hard science background, their explanation is not only preposterous, it's impossible. If you had an airplane crash into the Pentagon, where are the airplane parts? There would be airplane parts. There were no airplane parts. Okay. Same thing with Manhattan. There were no airplanes. There's a whole association of American engineers who did a whole analysis of this and wrote a whole report saying that the explanation that the government gave is physically impossible. Okay? You're not just going to have a plane just fly into the building. They were holographs, in case you're interested. I've seen the brochures. We've had holographs like that for many years, kept secret. And the reason they're kept secret is if we go to war, we're going to use those holographs. So our B-52 can project a hologram of a plane that's attacking them, and the plane goes after the hologram, and they get away. So that's why they're not telling anybody about it. It's all kept secret because it's all defense stuff. But it's crystal clear. If you look at the facts, which I enumerate in my book, the United States is now a level 5 government. And as I said, the 4 main governments. I'm not too sure about India, because again, I'm not really a student of that. I suspect they're at level 4. I don't think they've got to level 5 yet. So this is really the way to understand governments. Forget left and right. There is no left and right. It's up or down. And the 3 top levels are sane, and the bottom 4 levels are insane. And that is so you can reasonably conclude there are no sane governments on earth. They're all insane. So it's like having some guy from the insane asylum let out and put him in charge of something. It's just insane. Okay. Everything he does is going to be insane. That's what you had with Hitler. The man was insane. Okay. Mussolini, the man was insane. Joseph Stalin, the man was insane. That's what you get from these people. I'm not going to mention any names in the American government. I'll let you figure it out. But you should consult this and pay attention to what's actually going on. How are they controlling you? Are they controlling you antipathetically, or are they controlling you brutally? I can remember a time when the government was antipathetic. It's not antipathetic anymore. It's brutal. So they sent a SWAT team to raid Mar-a-Lago. That was not necessary. His lawyers, Trump's lawyers, were cooperating. All right? They didn't have to. They could have just said, we want this and this, and they would have given it to him. No, they have to go in with a SWAT team. That's controlling brutally. So that's what's going on. And it's pretty much all over the world now. And so anybody who's optimistic about the future of the human race in the near term is a fool. Because when you have all the governments are insane, you're not going to have a good outcome. So you look at what Hamas did to Israel 2 months ago. Isn't that insane? Going in and killing 1,400 civilians, women and children, and that's insane. Okay, those guys belong in a padded cell or on the gallows. It's not sane. Okay, so that's what's going on with the scale of government. It's very clear if you read the chapter. And this is how you should evaluate governments and know what you're dealing with. So if you go on the internet now and speak the truth, you are in a lot of trouble. They will come after you. They're going after Elon Musk. The last guy in the world who should be gone after is Elon Musk. If you look at all the taxes he pays, all of the progress he's created, they were fine with him until he bought Twitter and said, I'm going to allow free speech on this platform. You can't have free speech in a level 5 government. It doesn't occur. So they're going after him. They're suing him in all kinds of different ways. He is now persona non grata. But if you know Elon Musk, he doesn't give a damn. He's big enough and strong enough and tough enough to stand up to them. But they're trying to discredit him, and but most Americans now see that they have a lot more faith in Elon Musk than they do in anybody in any government. This is a guy who actually gets things done. He actually builds companies. He actually shows a profit in a very even-handed way. You know, he's not a racist. He's not in the mafia or anything like that. He's just a smart businessman who works really hard. So, of course, God forbid he should buy a platform and prevent them from censoring people who go on his platform. So they're after him now. That tells you right there what's going on in the United States. Any questions?
No questions. Fascinating. I think that's a good spot to stop for today. Jim, again, I want to say thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your knowledge on developing these scales and then sharing them with us.
You're welcome.
Until next time, thank you.
Thanks, Chris.